start by introducing some of the people here with me who represent part of the NDP team in British Columbia, both MLAs and candidates in the next election. Almost all of you will know Jenny Kwan, the MLA for Vancouver Mount Pleasant, our critic for economic development and trade and jobs. Jenny has, of course, been a leader for a long time and represented people in the legislature since 1996, and I think is one of the most respected MLAs and politicians in the province. To my right is Diane Thorne, who's the MLA for really just over there,
right across the street.
Malargo Coquitlam, and Diane has had a huge impact here, both as a city councillor and as a representative in the Coquitlam area, and represented many people in the Canadian community for a very long time. They represent a big part of her constituency. Diane is not running in the next election, which makes us sad. But nonetheless, we have a star candidate who's coming in and running in the next election. That's Selina Robinson, who's the city councillor in the city of Coquitlam. Topped the polls in the last municipal election in the city of Coquitlam, and I think is going to do the very difficult task of trying to replace Diane in the legislature, which is something I'm going to come to you in a second. I'm going to go the other way here. Gabriel Yu is our candidate in Vancouver Fraserview, and like my parents, is a small businessman. Is a major voice also in the Chinese Canadian community and the media in that community. I think a courageous spokesperson who's well recognized there. Gabriel lost by a very thin margin in Vancouver Fraserview last time. He's going to win this time. We sense that, and I think is a great candidate for us. Rick Keating is a city councillor in North Vancouver and our candidate in North Vancouver Lonsdale. I think he's respected by all in North Vancouver. He's, again, in municipal elections, one of the leading vote-getters over a series of elections in North Vancouver, because he represents everybody from the labour community to the business community to all the diverse communities of North Vancouver. George Heyman is our candidate. Got to wave to them, George. Got to wave to them. In Vancouver Fairview, George is the executive director, that's the right title, of the Sierra Club of Canada here in British Columbia, and one of the leading environmental voices in our province, working for a sustainable society. He's a former president of the BC Government Employees Union. He's also a former and current poet, and many other things. This is something I've learned about George recently, and I think really a remarkable representative of both working people and on the environment. And then there's Jane, who some of you will know, and Jane is our candidate in Burnaby-Lougheed, and reflects, I think, in our candidates. If you look at them across British Columbia, the most diverse and dynamic group of candidates that we've ever run in British Columbia. I think the first candidate in the Korean Canadian community who's ever run for the NDP in British Columbia. I think a rising star both in the community, in the academic community. Her experiences in both education and in healthcare are invaluable. And we're looking forward, of course, to working together in the legislature. And we hope to represent this community in the legislature after the next election. So it's wonderful to have Jane as our candidate here in Burnaby-Lougheed. And so that's our team that's with you today of candidates and of MLAs. I just wanted to, just very briefly, and then we'll have hopefully some questions, to say some of the things that we hope to run on in the next election. First of all, I want to say that this meeting, the one we're having today, is one that I think we should repeat on a regular basis. The voice and importance of the Korean Canadian community is growing. And you can see that within the ranks of the NDP, within the ranks of the business community, and of every part of society. The relationship both as a population here, and that's reflected in Jane running and other people being involved, but also its growing importance economically and socially in our province can't be underestimated. I mean, we're talking about 45,000 Korean Canadians. We're talking about an increase in trade of 35% over 10 years. 1.26 billion last year in export trade from British Columbia to Korea, principally, as you know, in natural resources. I think if you look at that over time, you'll see that that is becoming more and more a central part of our economic future. And so for us, building on that future is something that started in British Columbia. First premier in British Columbia to go to Asia was Dave Barrett, an NDP premier. Glenn Clark and Mike Harcourt, as premiers of British Columbia, built that relationship, and the current government has continued to build that relationship with the Republic of Korea, and we have to continue to do so. That relationship isn't just about trade, it's not just about coal and copper and aluminum from here to Korea and electronic products that come back from Korea. It's also in people. See the very significant proportion of students, of international students studying in BC public schools come from Korea. We see 106,000 visitors from the Republic of Korea last year. So tourism and education and the personal relationships that come with this demonstrates, I think, what we all know, which is that the Republic of Korea is one of British Columbia's most important trading partners. And the fact that we have such a dynamic community here, Korean-Canadian community, is a huge advantage for us, one that we have to build on and celebrate. At its core right now in BC, we have the principal issues that are going to be issues in the election campaign are about the economy. And these are the issues that we're going to be running on. Young people need to have the skills to get the jobs of the future. 80% of the jobs of the future will require post-secondary education. 80%. And our young people are not getting sufficient skills now. There is a shortfall, which means that when jobs are created in BC, sometimes people from BC can't get those jobs. And so one of the principal roles of the provincial government is to ensure that we have adequate skills training, post-secondary training in our society. And that will be the key economic priority of an NDP government, ensuring that there are jobs, yes, but that we can have people with the skills to get those jobs to ensure economic growth into the future. The second economic priority, of course, is addressing and ensuring fairness in our society. So ensuring that people have access to that post-secondary education, whether their parents have money or not. Because if you need a post-secondary education to succeed economically, whether in small business, in the professions, in the trades, and you can't get it because you don't have enough money, that's a problem for the economy and one we have to address. So inequality is growing in BC, and we have to address that. Thirdly, and overall, we have to, as I said earlier, invest in trade, ensuring that we continue to promote international trade, because I think that's important, and ensuring that we make things in British Columbia trade, that we add value in our economy, something that we haven't been doing enough. One of the reasons why economic growth has been slower under the Liberals than under any other government in recent memory. Average economic growth under the Liberal Party has been 2%. Average economic growth under the NDP was 3% in British Columbia. That's annual growth. Average economic growth under the Social Credit Party, that was previous to the NDP, was 3%. So we are having relatively slower growth, and part of the reason for that is that we export raw materials without upgrading those raw materials. And we need to provide supports for that in the economy, and that means ensuring that workers have the skills for those jobs, but also ensuring that we support local manufacturing. And that's what is a priority for us. And I think finally, because I think there are obviously lots of issues from healthcare to education, we have to ensure that seniors in our population are treated fairly and have the ability to do what all seniors want to do, which is to stay at home as long as possible. A lot of our spending in healthcare is on big hospitals and big institutions, and that's important, and we need those. But we need to ensure that seniors get access to the care they need, especially at home, so they can live at home as long as possible. Nobody wants to go to a care home. We need to have care homes. We need to have hospitals. We need to ensure that seniors especially can live high qualities of life in their communities, so that there's community programs for them, and also get home support, so people who can support them living at home, which is less expensive and allows them to live a better life. These are the kind of things that an NDP government would emphasize. And here's the final thing. We need to have a better discussion, a more generous discussion in our society. The Liberal Party is going to be very negative in this campaign. They're going to say negative things about us. They're going to say negative things about me. I try and engage with people in a respectful way. I think respect is important. I respect the Premier, even though I disagree with her. I respect Mr. Cummins, the leader of the Conservative Party. I respect Ms. Sturck, the leader of the Green Party. The issues facing our province are really important for our economy, for healthcare, for our environment. I think we need to have a more respectful debate. So over the next months, you're going to see Premier and the Liberal Party run a lot of negative ads and personal attacks, but we're not going to run personal attacks. We're going to be respectful of the voters, respectful of our opponents, respectful of the media, respectful of the community, and try and increase people's willingness to get involved in politics. I'm so proud of our candidates, some of the ones here, ones around our province. I think they're going to do a great job representing our province. And so we're going to respect the voters. They get to decide the election. Not me, not even the media, not even you. The voters get to decide. And I think we need to increase the number of people participating by having a more civil, more generous, and more respectful debate. And that's how I'm going to conduct myself in the coming months. I hope we have meetings like this regularly. From elected Premier, we'll have those meetings regularly, not just in events that are important for the Korean Canadian community or dealing with relationships with the Republic of Korea. It would be my intention to go to the Republic of Korea within the first 6 months of becoming Premier. That's how important that relationship is for us, but on a regular basis, because I think the media is changing as well. In my constituency where I live, in Vancouver Kingsway, the Vancouver Sun is the 6th most read paper. The 6th most read paper. I live in a very diverse community, and what we're seeing, and this is a good thing, is a much more democratic, more diverse media. And so we've got to build relationships as well, so we can both communicate our message, and you can ask the questions you need to ask to inform your readers and your listeners and your viewers. I think if we can continue to meet more regularly, and you get to ask the tough questions, and we have to answer those questions, that will be good for all of us. So thank you for joining me today. I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have. Danny, do you want to say a few things?
No.
You want me to sit down? Please eat, by the way. This is the time. And because I can't tell the media what to do, I'm going to say, our candidates, please eat. Please eat. And so that we can get going. But I'd be happy to take any questions.
How can this become our economy? Because 15 years ago, I remember NDP's way is more spending, more debt, and more taxes. I don't actually recently Liberal government is in the same way. More spending, more debt, and more taxes. Why two parties have the same way? But I think you will have a different way, right? So what is the plan?
I think the plan is this, that we don't have a lot of money. We've got fixed expenditures. Healthcare is important. It's good for the economy to have a public healthcare system. Better than the American system, which is very expensive. We have to have excellent education and public education in the universities and colleges, because we need, in the economy, we need workers who have skills, and people have to have the means to succeed. We have increasingly technological economy. People have to have the means to succeed. So we have to focus on a few key problems. Ensuring that young people have the skills they need, right? Ensuring that we're competitive on taxes. Ensuring that we don't waste money. Right now, the Liberals are wasting money on television ads, and they're just wasting money for partisan reasons.
So you allocated the budget?
Well, I think we have to be prudent. But there are some problems we have to try and fix. Business can't create jobs if people can't get around the province. People won't come to BC if this isn't a beautiful place and the environment isn't beautiful. That's one of our key competitive advantages. So we have to ensure that those things are maintained so that there's the climate for business to invest and create jobs.
Frankly, some people worry about increasing taxes. So what do you think?
Well, as you said, everybody on January 1st who pays MSP premiums, you pay MSP premiums? They went up on January 1st, right? They went up last January 1st. They went up the January 1st before that. They went up the January 1st before that. The Liberal Party brought in the HST after they said and promised they wouldn't. And we fought to get rid of the HST, and the NDP and others won. Right? So I think that what I've said is there are some things. There's some big business taxes that we're going to make changes on, but we're going to say what we do before the election. The Liberal Party promised one thing before the election and did something different. We're going to say what we're going to do on those issues before the election, so there won't be any surprises. You look at the HST, it's hurt the economy for 4 years because it hurt it when every business, including this one, had to make changes when the HST came in. And now every business in the whole province has to make changes as it goes out. That's wasteful. And it happened because the Liberal Party, unfortunately, misled the voters in that case.
Okay. This is from Korea Daily, and you mentioned about lots of good points. General election is scheduled for May this year, as you know. But if the NDP wins, nobody knows. But if the NDP wins, what is the first priority? NDP to policy.
I think the priority for our economy right now is making sure that people have skills. Right now, when I talk to people in manufacturing, they say if we had people we could hire who had the skills for the job we've hired today, there'd be more jobs. When we have new mines in British Columbia or new economic development in the province, frequently those jobs aren't going to people from BC because we don't have the skills. So I think the key issue on the economy in BC is ensuring that people have the skills they need to get the jobs of the future and to create wealth in the future. And so that they, as individuals, have the ability to earn a good living. And that's something we have to deal with now. We can't wait to deal with that problem. So that's an issue of post-secondary education and of K-12 education, because you have to have excellence in education. With our natural resources in BC, can you imagine this, right? You compare our natural resources just in BC compared to, say, the natural resources of the Republic of Korea. We have a huge advantage. We do. Right? We have all of these natural resources. What we need to succeed in the long term is a highly educated, skilled workforce. If we have a skilled workforce and the natural resources we have and excellent public services, then we will succeed even if the world economy is in difficult shape. But right now, because of neglect on some of these issues, we're losing our competitive advantage on skills, and we have to address that. I think the second thing, if you're in the Lower Mainland, if you're at this spot, right, on North Road, Lougheed Highway, Highway 1, you know that we also have to move people around, right? That we have to ensure, for example, that we have public transit in this region so that people can move around. Because if we can't move people around, our economy will not be very successful here. I mean, the problems we have with transportation, environmental problems, require investment in public transit. We're going to get the Evergreen line, but it took way too long to get. We have to address public transit issues in Surrey and other communities so that people can move around. That's important for the economy, it's important for people, it's important for the environment. Because we're not going to be able to, as more people come to this region, add cars and add cars and add cars. We're going to have to give people an option to move around. So I've been specific about that. I've said we have to use some of the carbon tax to help improve principally public transit in Metro Vancouver so that people can get around. I mean, these are key priorities, I think, for the future, both for the economy and the environment. So, because the environment is really important and very much linked to the economy. We don't have a beautiful environment. We don't have that in a sustained way. It's going to affect everything in our society, and we have to ensure that that happens. We owe that to our children and our grandchildren.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is Jenny.
Oh.
Sorry. Okay, this is Jenny from Vietnam. As you mentioned, the BC economy is based on driven by the forestry and mining, but also as well as small businesses.
Yes.
So these small businesses are to belong to the Korean businesses community. So today you have an opportunity to address the Korean community.
Yeah.
And so what would you like to say to Korean business owners as well as the potential Korean immigrants and small business investors?
This is a place. They've come to the right place. This is a wonderful place to invest. This is a wonderful society to invest in. I know a little bit about small business. My mom and dad ran a business in Vancouver, small business in Vancouver for 42 years. They both just retired. My dad was the president most years. My mom was the vice president. And some years they changed. My mom was the president. My dad was the vice president. In the odd years, she was the president. In the even years, he was the president. They ran a business for 42 years. And they came here. They were both immigrants to this country, and they came here, and they established their own business, and they raised their children doing that, and they achieved a lot. I think this is a good place to invest. So our job as government is to ensure, I think, that the conditions in BC are there for success. We've got to make sure that when small businesses need to hire people, that we have qualified people who are able to take those jobs so that small businesses can grow. We have to make sure that we're competitive on taxes, so there will be no change in the small business tax rate, which is currently 2.5% in BC. No change in the small business tax rate. We have to ensure that we're competitive on those sorts of things. We've got to ensure that our communities work so that when we have a healthcare system, we know this from experience, that we have a healthcare system that's efficient. So if you're a small business person and you're running a business and you have to wait to get access to healthcare, that can be a major problem for a business. Small business people can't wait for those sorts of things because they're needed in their small business every day. They can't go on leave. My parents were the only employees of their business. They can't go on leave. So we need excellent healthcare in communities for them. And if we do those things, then with this society, if we make sure those things are right, then this is a place for small businesses to grow. Small business creates an enormous amount of wealth in our society, and Gabriel knows this as a small business person himself. They create an enormous amount of wealth in society. And we have to ensure that the conditions are right so that entrepreneurs can succeed. And that means excellent healthcare and education, a healthy environment, making sure that we're competitive in our tax regime, and that we're ensuring that there's an adequate supply of skilled workers. If we do those things, then small businesses can succeed, and I think they're going to continue to come. Particularly, I would argue, in the Korean Canadian community. The community is rising. Its involvement and its influence is rising. Not just in terms of numbers, although that's very significant, but its influence on the rest of the society is increasing. I think this is a time of great enthusiasm and momentum. I think it's going to be exciting, for example, when young people in the Korean Canadian community see Jane in the legislature. Because I think that's an example of the growing influence and role of the community, not just as a community, but as British Columbians. And I think as we see that, I think this is going to be an exciting time for people to invest, to come here, to have small businesses. The final thing is this. We need to be pro-immigration. We need people to come. We need people to come for jobs. And I think this is what's important is we need people to be able to come and stay and make a life here. And that's my view, that one of the reasons why BC succeeds, we succeed because we have natural resources. We succeed because we have great public services, generally. We also succeed because we are open to immigration. One of the problems that they're having in Europe, I think, is a resistance to that. But when we have people coming here, like my parents did, right, coming to Canada and contributing here, that's a huge source of wealth and potential. And we have to ensure that people can come to British Columbia and can stay here and raise a family and open a business and vote and see their children graduate from high school and university or college or whatever they want to do. That's a huge value. And so if we do those things right, then I think we're going to be fine on the economy.